So good morning, it's Monday morning. My name's Becky. I'm a clinical nurse specialist in headache within the neurology department. A little bit about my background. So I have worked as a nurse specialist for about 8 years, and prior to that I was ward based. My face-to-face clinics were cancelled about 4 weeks ago because of the coronavirus, and therefore I volunteered my services to the COVID wards. So that came with a lot of apprehension and worry, as with everyone, but actually it's been the best experience of my life. I hope to talk to you about that and share that experience with you.
So I'm off to work now, leaving my family behind in lockdown. I'm going to say goodbye to the kids, but I know I'm just going to want to crawl in there and go back to sleep with them, but unfortunately there's work to be done. Georgie, bye. Georgie, bye. Yeah. I'll see you later. I'm going to work, okay? Bye, Mum. Bye, love you. Good day at work. You too. Right, chunk of cheese. Have a nice day, okay? You too. Bye. And you. Bye, Buckley. So walking into the hospital now, probably the only perk of COVID-19 is that we can park free on site rather than get the park and ride. So the ward I base myself on is Braunton ward. So it's essentially it's a COVID positive ward. It's a little bit like a high dependency unit. So they're all COVID positive. The patients are. And some of which have come back from intensive care where they've been ventilated, and some of which are not appropriate to go to intensive care, so essentially very sick patients. So I've kind of nominated myself as the patient liaison nurse. So we found that because of all the PPE, the nurses weren't able to take calls, and obviously patients can't have their relatives come and visit at this difficult time. Therefore there was a real lack of communication going back and forth to the relatives. So I nominated myself to kind of be that person to contact the patients, thank you, every day, and to let them know how their loved ones are doing, and when some of those patients were in the last days of life, we would facilitate them coming into the hospital, but that comes with a lot of risks, which I'll go into more detail later about. So basically today I am preparing myself for a whole new medical team. They change on a weekly basis. So it's led by the respiratory consultant because it's a respiratory condition, but obviously there's many other doctors who have been assigned to the ward from different specialisms, so they're out of their comfort zones. So basically we'll take the board round, and the key thing I want to find out today after a few days off is who the poorly patients are, who I need to make contact with first in terms of relatives, find out what the skill mix is on the hospital, and make sure that the nurses feel backed up, that they've got someone to go to. They may not have worked in this environment before, and they may need some support. So we'll see how the day pans out from here. Team, hello everyone.
Okay, so this is our lovely team on Braunton ward. As you can see, this is our magic line here. You are not allowed to step over this line. This is where the positive patients are down there. And obviously they're wearing the appropriate PPE and looking fabulous in it too. Okay, so on this side we're all in scrubs, we're all clean. Hello.
Hi Becky.
Hello. So this here is our don-in area. So this is where everyone comes in to get ready in their PPE and we help them, show them how to put it on. All patients will enter through these doors and we'll go over the line into their appropriate bed space down there. So I've arrived on the ward now. So as you can see, all scrubbed up. We've all got to wear scrubs, basically because we can leave our uniforms here to be washed by the hospital rather than taking our dirty uniforms home to our families. This causes a bit of disruption on the ward because we don't know who's who, from the doctors to the domestics, the HCAs and the nurses. Then when you add in the PPE on top, it makes things even harder again. So I'm just about to head into the boardroom now, so that we can take handover. There'll be a brand new set of doctors. It's led by respiratory, obviously, because it's a respiratory condition, but also we've had other doctors redeployed. So for example, last week we had a immunologist with us. So I've got to make myself known to the team, what I'm here to do, and identify the patients whose families need contacting straight away this morning, and take it from there. Yeah, I will pass that back to her, because being separated after all these years together, they're just going to panic about each other, aren't they? They don't know how to deal with life without each other. So so that's really brilliant news, and I'll pass that over, and hopefully get them back together soon. All right. No problem at all. You take care. Thanks, bye, bye. So that was a little phone call to a daughter-in-law who have got a really difficult situation going on at the moment. So husband's very poorly at home, and his wife's got COVID and she's in here. So they've been separated for the first time in their marriage. They're both in their 80s, and they're both understandably worried about each other. So trying to keep these lines of communication open about how each other are when they can't visit and they can't speak to each other. It's really important because they're getting mixed messages. So thankfully we're able to reassure both of them today, so it's a good job. So Danielle's one of our newly qualified nurses. So Danielle, how are you finding, what are the challenges you're finding coming into this environment and nursing?
So the difference for me was working in a different way. For the last 3 years you've been learning how to work on a ward, and this is completely different now. So you've got different challenges, like having different paperwork out in the green zone and you're in the red zone, you can't like write things down straight away. So it's just learning different ways to doing your job each day. But second week in and it's getting easier. Good,
well done. And what about the challenges with the PPE you're having to wear?
So challenges PPE, so communication, hearing people, smiling at people and people not realising, not knowing who everybody is. So we're all wearing exactly the same clothes, so it's trying to understand. Taking bloods through gloves as well, yeah, doing all your clinical skills. So all the things that were second nature are now like extra difficult because you're having to find different ways of and learning. It feels like you're learning it all to do it again.
Yeah, of course. Well done, you're doing a great job.
Thank you.
So I think that's really relevant. So I think student nurses, from my recollection of being a student nurse, we are taught for 3 years about the importance of communication, and whether that is by
by touch, by eye contact, whether it's you smiling, about pauses and things like that. It's all really important stuff. And these guys have come into the job and that's instantly removed. Okay, so the patients can't see your face, they can't see your expression. You know, you can't touch people skin to skin, and there's these physical barriers in the way, so it is a real challenge. Things like reading notes before going to see the patient, you can't do that. The notes are kept in the clean area, so you have to read it all before you go in. So all of these things are all barriers in communication, but actually, as Danielle said, they're overcoming these barriers on a daily basis. So as I've already said, I contact everyone's family every day for all the patients who are on the ward, and most of the time it's good news to say that their relatives are actually improving, but actually some of the conversations aren't always that their family members are improving. So it's really important to get it right in the way that you're discussing people's condition, so using the right terminology, making sure that they understand what you're saying to them, and actually that they're not improving anymore, and that we need to withdraw some treatments that aren't working anymore. And as such, I had a family 2 weeks ago that stands out in my mind, where their patient, they knew I'd informed them for days that they weren't improving, and on one particular day the doctors had come back and said this patient was in their final days of life. So the family, although they knew it was on the cards, I contacted them on this particular day and said we're giving them comfort medication to keep them calm, but your dad is in his final days of life. The family were prepared for this because we'd had those conversations, and I said to them that they were able to come to the hospital because he was in his last days of life to say goodbye. We make special rules for these patients. Unfortunately, the family had vulnerable people at home and would have to self-isolate, and they didn't feel it was appropriate to come to a COVID positive ward, which I completely understood. Therefore, we discussed alternative ways of communicating, and then therefore I enlisted the help of one of our young junior HCAs to help me with a really special communication that left the whole ward in tears. We had that moment a few weeks ago with one of our patients who you helped enormously with him reconnect with his family before he passed away. Yep. His family have written something for you. Okay. Would you be able to forward our deepest thanks and gratitude to all the staff from Braunton who cared for Ian in his last few hours of life, in particular Becky and Charlotte, who arranged for the Zoom conference yesterday afternoon, which has left us with such precious memories. They were so patient in helping us to make the connection when we were struggling with the technology. They epitomised the superb staff at Derriford who looked after Ian and cared for him so diligently. You are all heroes and deserve the total respect of the nation. That was you. You did that. You made that special moment. You did a really good job. And they also emailed me and they said after all of this, they'd like to meet us and say thank you in person, all right? You did a really good job, and I want you to keep that. This has gone through all the heads at the hospital, the chief exec, and that you did that.
My name's Lark. I'm the ward manager on Braunton, which was the first COVID ward in Derriford Hospital. We started 4 weeks ago, and we quickly discovered that it was quite a challenge to keep our friends and family of our patients updated with what was going on for them. It's hard for us to answer telephones in the red zone because we've got the PPE on, and if we're holding the phone to our faces, then that can compromise the infection control of the nurses. So we were spending a lot of time coming out and ringing the patient's family every day. So we knew it was a challenge, and then Becky knocked on my door and said to me, I'm a specialist nurse and this is what I normally do day in, day out. What can I do to help, basically? And I said to her, we really need somebody to talk to the next of kins of our patients and keep them updated, and that sometimes these conversations might be quite difficult ones to have, but really I feel that that's what her bread and butter was, and that's completely what she agreed with me. So Becky started, and very quickly we realised how incredibly valuable her role was, and that she was being my eyes and ears on the ward, talking to the families and the communication that I don't have time to have, and raising any issues to me, liaising with the doctors, going back to the nurses and expressing patients' wishes via their families back to the nurses. And it's really been invaluable in providing really good patient care on Braunton.
Today is the 28th of April, that was 11 o'clock. We've just observed our minute silence on Braunton Ward for all of our healthcare professionals that we've lost since the COVID outbreak.
So this is Nikki, one of our fabulous Luke's nurses, and she is a PPE virgin. So part of my role as well, I've adopted, is to help people who've never PPE'd up before, to show them how it's done. Okay? So let's get you started, shall we? Obviously it can be quite daunting if you've never done this before. These ladies, once they're donned up, they have to wear this for a maximum of 4 hours. It's to protect them. Okay, so if you pull the tab on the front, and then you tie it with that one. So next we're going to do the headdress. What, you might want to adjust it of your eyes.
They've got hair nets as well. Hair nets.
Okay. So have you had the mask fitting?
I have, yes.
And which one was it that you used? The duck one?
Yes.
Oh yeah. Not perfect science. Okay. You're alright, Karen.
Yes, I just want to get into the frame of the camera.
That's fine. Yeah, you can put that on. You happy to do it?
I think so.
It needs to be as tight as possible so that we protect Nikki from the virus, and that's what gives you those, if you've seen online, those marks on your face, but it's keeping the bug out. That's it. And over the top. That's it. And pinch the nose, yes, that's perfect. Comfortable.
It's on. I wouldn't choose to wear it for a night out.
No?
No.
It's quite difficult to hear people when they're in their masks, so that's a bit of a barrier. They end up shouting at people. That's it, and if you pop that one on, what size glove are you?
I would say large.
She's good at her skills. When she's in that, she's gonna. When you stop,
So with some people, when you're riding up, you put a little hole in them so your thumb can go through. I want it to do that.
I'm not giving it to you. It's not happening. Just plop your stuff anywhere.
That's it. That's fine, carry on. Oh. Oh. This is a flunk. There we go. Lovely. And then last is your gloves. And you bring them over the top of your gown. Perfect. So Nikki's all ready now. She's all clean. This is like her new skin to step over the line into the dirty zone. So when she sees each patient, she'll use additional gloves on top and treat this as a skin. So you're all set now, ready to go.
Thank you, Becky.
Okay, so home again now. Just reflecting about the day we've had today, and I was just mindful that I know I put a really positive slant on everything, and I think that's just the kind of person I am. And I think a lot of that has been because I've been acutely aware that the nurses and HCAs on the ward have been really inexperienced in these areas, dealing with dying and patients. And that's why I've taken on the role of preparing families, etc., for really difficult conversations. And I really feel that's something that really comes with experience. So I'm happy to do that, but I was also really acutely aware that it was a massive thing when we had the tragic death of Caroline Flack, and everyone was saying #BeKind, but it kind of went away really too quickly. And so when I went to Braunton ward, I found that some of our young nurses who were developed to be amazing, they're already amazing, but even more amazing nurses, needed somebody to say, hey, I'm not managing here, I need somebody to speak to. And I really wanted to be that person, and I think I really have done that. So as jolly as it all seems, obviously complex and difficult conversations do go on, but I hope that the staff feel supported by me also, because I've really made that one of my aims as well. So yeah.
So I'm Martin Thomas, and I'm one of the team with the St Luke's Hospital Palliative Care team, and my role is actually a nurse consultant in palliative care. And Becky asked if I could come and say a few words today and try not to say and too much, which I'm already aware I'm doing. I knew I'd do that. I always do that on video. But so we were just talking just now about this and what would be good to talk about now. And I suppose it'd be good to reflect on how it came about that our team became involved with what Becky's been doing here on Braunton and now on Bickley. And I suppose to begin with, as we came into the COVID crisis, us in specialist palliative care, we were as much in the dark as most others. But one thing we did was we communicated with other palliative care teams from around the world who had already experienced what was going on. So there's some great blogs that came from Italy, from some palliative care doctors out there. And one of the things they identified was that one of the most difficult parts of the whole thing, apart from obviously the physical effects of the disease, was the psychological impact of patients and families being isolated from each other, and how difficult that was. And we thought in palliative care actually that's something we can make a difference with, but we didn't know where to start really, because our normal connections around the hospital just evaporated as everything was moved around really, really rapidly, and we had to look around then for who might be good contacts, and we started to come down to Braunton, and we quickly realised that Becky was here with a new kind of model of working around communicating with the COVID patients. And when she started to describe and we could see what she was doing here, we thought that's amazing, that's what needs to happen. So we immediately thought we must engage with her and we must do something to see if we can replicate this in other wards. And I suppose that's then, you know, the rest is history almost, but in the space of just a few short weeks, we've looked at recruiting other nurse specialists and other nurses into the team to help bolster up the numbers that Becky's got here, because in order to move from the 4 days a week that Becky's been covering with communication and helping here on the ward, you also then have got 3 days you need to cover. So we thought we must try and make this into a 7-day service here on Braunton, initially replicate that onto Bickley, the ward next door, and make that a 7-day service, and then also see if we can push it out into the hospital and make it work on other wards. So in Derriford we've got healthcare of the elderly wards, which are COVID red and amber, and we intend to, as soon as we can get the numbers and get the buy-in from that team, those teams, replicate what's been going on here in Braunton, now Bickley, and move that out onto the healthcare of the elderly wards. So that's a bit of how it's happened.
Perfect.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you for that, Martin. That's great, thank you.
Okay, so I'm getting sick of seeing the sight of my own face. This isn't normal for me. But I'm home now, and I'm just starting to reflect on the videos that I've done this week, and I hope that I've got the overall message over. I've realised that I say a lot as well, which is something I need to really work on. So there you go. But I'm looking back to the video I did initially, where I got quite emotional about my role, and I think that it comes over that everything is quite jolly and that everything's fine, and on the whole it is, and I think that reflects my personality and the fact that I want to keep things positive for the staff who are working really hard on the wards, but also that I'm not in any way flippant about this condition. I've had some very difficult conversations with family members who feel very out of control in these really uncertain times, and we're kind of learning as we're going along as well as healthcare professionals. But on the whole, I'm really proud of what I've achieved, and actually it's made me step back and think about what my skill set is and what I've learnt from this. And I don't know what that means right now, but I know that my relatives will pick up the phone every day and say, "Hi Becky, thanks for ringing," like I'm a member of the family. And I know that the staff will say, "Oh, we know Becky will be in, she'll support us," you know. So then they've said that to me, and that maybe isn't captured on the footage so much, but also being that link between the nurses and the relatives, and congratulating people for the small things, because the small things aren't small. The small things are the huge things for the patient and the relatives, and I've really taken that to heart. So I am so proud today to be a nurse on Braunton ward at Derriford Hospital. It's an experience that is going to continue over the coming months, and an experience I'll take to the grave. Something I'm incredibly proud of, and I'm very, very proud of the nursing profession as well as all the other professions, multidisciplinary wise. We've really pulled together and we've appreciated each other, and we are
working our socks off to be the best we can possibly be, and for that I'm so proud to be a part of that. And I hope that's something that hopefully my family will pass down in years to come, that I was a part of this, and a big part of it in a little way. Thanks ever so much for your time.